Welcome back to the Covert Narcissism Podcast, where healing gets real even when the truths that we uncover feel uncomfortable. And today's episode is one of those. It's definitely not an easy one, but it is certainly an essential one. You see, today we are talking about a form of abuse that's often very hidden behind wedding vows. It's disguised as marital duty. It's coded in so much guilt that many survivors can barely breathe, much less actually speak their truth. We're talking about sexual coercion. We're talking about manipulation. We're talking about assault that happens within the marriage. And even more specifically, we're talking about how these violations often show up when your partner is a covert narcissist. Someone who doesn't scream or threaten, but instead they chip away at your boundaries. They erode your boundaries through guilt trips, circular conversations, gaslighting, and silent punishments. This episode is for anyone who has ever asked themselves, was it really assault? Am I overreacting here? Do I even have a right to feel violated? I mean, this is my husband or this is my wife. And I didn't really say no. I did actually say yes, even though it was just to keep the peace. So do I really have a right to be upset here? So if you are asking yourself these questions, this episode is for you. Now imagine that you're lying in bed and it's been a really long day. It was a full day at work. You were busy taking care of the kids. You had to clean the house a lot. You have not gotten a break all day and you're exhausted. Emotionally, you're wrung out. You're just spent and you just want to go to bed. You just want to sleep. And they roll over and reach for you and touch you in a way that communicates their desire. You know this touch. You've experienced it many times. But tonight you just don't want to. And you know it's not safe to say that. You've tried to communicate this before at other times, and you feel like you always just have to say yes to give in because anytime you don't, it's a problem. So you try again, you just gently say, I'm just really tired tonight. And that's all it takes. You get the sigh and the huff and the flop as they roll away from you, and then total silence. And it's a heavy silence. You know that they are upset. And now, you know that silence and you know that it will last for hours, often even for days. You're going to lay there awake now feeling bad because you want to sleep. You feel bad because all you wanted to do was go to sleep. And so finally you give in and you quietly whisper, okay, fine. And you go through the motions. You disassociate, you feel distant, cold, sick. But when it's over, you pretend to be okay. You pretend to have enjoyed yourself and you snuggle up against them at least for a few minutes, still trying to make sure that everything is okay for them. And you might even tell yourself, well, at least now they won't be mad at me. But deep down, you don't feel right. You feel hollow. You feel violated. You even feel ashamed for feeling that way. What's wrong with me? What's wrong is that it isn't consent, it's coercion. What's wrong is that you're not free to say no. Now, it's important here to clarify that not all covert narcissists use sexual coercion or even spousal rape as a tactic of control. For some, it's actually the opposite. They may withhold sex intentionally using rejection, indifference, or shaming to assert their power. In these cases, sex isn't used to access the partner's body, it's weaponized through deprivation, making the survivor feel unwanted, undesirable, and even punished. The pattern is still about control. Whether through forced compliance or calculated withdrawal, the covert narcissist seeks to dominate the emotional landscape of your relationship. This makes you question your worth, your role, your reality, your perceptions. So this episode is focused on survivors who have experienced violations of consent, but both dynamics can leave very deep psychological wounds. Now, unlike overt abusers, who may use threats of violence or actual violence, covert narcissists play this psychological chess with you and your emotions. And now here are some of the ways that they manipulate you into sexual submission. One is they guilt trip you. Now, this guilt trip is masked as romance, it's masked as love, and this is what it sounds like. If you're not wanting sexual activity, and you express this to them, you're going to hear things like, I just want to feel close to you. You mean so much to me, and I just want to show you my love. This is about making you feel better, and I want to take care of you, and you won't even let me. They put this guilt trip in a way that they make it all your fault, that they're trying to be the romantic, they're trying to be the love, the loving person in this relationship and take care of you by, hey, why won't you have sex with me? Which is really about their needs at that point. You need to remember, though, that you're not rejecting connection. They will throw that in your face and say, well, I can't believe that you would reject me. I'm just trying to feel connected to you. You're not rejecting connection here. In fact, connection is what you crave. I was so connection starved in my own marriage, as many of you are. So when they say, I just want to feel close to you, like this is their show of romance and connection. However, when you just want to snuggle instead of sex, or you just want to talk and enjoy each other's company instead of sex, they're not interested. And they actually push you away because clearly they're not after the connection. They turn cold, distant, they guilt you into giving in. You aren't rejecting connection, you're rejecting coercion. Another way that they manipulate you into, sexual coercion here is emotional withholding. See, after you say no, their warmth disappears. Fine, don't worry about it. They go cold on you. They avoid eye contact, conversations become clipped. You're being punished now, not with fists, but with withdrawal. This continues the next day. They're huff around the house, being short with the kids, fussing at the dogs. They're, clipped with you. They don't engage in conversations. They'll give one-word answers and storm off to work. This sometimes continues for days, refusing to give you any emotional attention and validation. So now they are punishing you until you give in. Another manipulation that they use is turning the tables. So I guess you're fine with me being lonely in this marriage? I never realized you could be so mean. They've now flipped the script and made you the bad person. Now you become the accused one. They begin this tirade of all the mean things that you've ever done, topped off by this ultimate offense. So you defend yourself against these attacks, more attacks than you can even count, explaining yourself again and again. No, it's clearly not okay to say no. And they blame you until you give in. Eventually, you give in just to stop the bleeding. Now, I'm here to tell you that consent for sex within the marriage even must be freely given. It must be informed, reversible, and enthusiastic. Let's look at these. It must be freely given, not under pressure, physically, financially, psychologically, mentally, emotionally. No, this is not about pressure. It must be informed. You must know what you're agreeing to. It must be reversible. You can change your mind at any point. And it must be enthusiastic, meaning you actually want to do this. If any of these pieces are missing, it's not consent. And it can easily move into the territory of sexual coercion or spousal rape. Now, marital rape, also known as spousal rape, is defined as any non-consensual sexual act committed by a spouse or intimate partner. It is a form of sexual assault. It's where one person forces or manipulates the other into sexual activity without their full, free, and informed consent. And regardless of whether they're married or not, it's actually illegal in all 50 states and the District of Columbia, and even in U.S. territories. Being married does not automatically mean consent. Consent must be ongoing, enthusiastic, in other words, desirable, and it must be revocable at any time. If one partner ignores, manipulates, or coerces the other into sex, that's abuse. And in many countries, it's actually a criminal offense. Now, I'm going to give you some examples of marital rape. This is sexual engagement, sexual activity that is forced through threats, intimidation, or manipulation. For example, you say no, And then he stands over you angry and threatens to make your life miserable, or threatens to cheat, or threatens to watch porn now since you won't give him what he, quote, deserves. So you comply out of fear, not desire. You say yes just to prevent an argument or even to prevent their bad choices. That is not mutual consent. Another example is sex while you're asleep or incapacitated. So you wake up in the middle of the night to find them on top of you. You didn't consent. You didn't even wake up until you were already being violated. And he calls it just being spontaneous, but you feel used and even disgusted. Number 3 is sex after emotional manipulation or guilt manipulation. You've said no, but he starts guilt tripping. I work hard for this family, and this is how you treat me? Other wives don't treat their husbands this way. Why did I even get married if I have to beg for sex? You finally give in, not because you want to, but because the emotional pressure is unbearable. So you go along. You go along with things to avoid being frigid, selfish, or called a prude. Number 4 is the silent treatment until you finally give in, until you comply. You say no, and then he withdraws his affection for days, giving you the silent treatment, acting like you've betrayed him. This coldness is a punishment. Eventually, you give in just to kind of reset the relationship. Number 5 is violating a sexual boundary that you've clearly set. You've made it clear that you don't want to do a particular act, and one night he does it anyways. And when you protest, he says, well, I thought you liked it. Don't be so sensitive. Again, violating your boundary that you've clearly set. This is a form of spousal rape. Marital rape does not always look violent. In many cases, it's about psychological control, not physical force. It's about ignoring or bypassing your autonomy, your no, your discomfort, your opinion. So I want to give you a story. He planned this whole night with wine, steak, good conversation, compliments. He was even trying harder than ever before and even said, I just want to make sure you're having a good time. And he really says that, I want to make this marriage work and I care about you and nothing matters more than this relationship to me. But after you enjoy this really nice dinner and some pleasantly surprising, in fact, good conversation, you ask him, can we just snuggle tonight? Can we just, maybe lay here and snuggle up and watch a movie? And his face drops. He slams the bathroom door, sulks for hours, and later mutters, you are so impossible to please. So you end up giving in. Not because you changed your mind, but because you felt obligated. Because you didn't want to ruin the whole evening. You. Never mind that he is ruining the whole evening. It was a beautiful evening and a great evening, and now it's ruined. You don't want to ruin it, so you give in and have sexual activity that you don't want when he's the one that's ruining it by breaking apart the good evening that you've had. That is how being nice becomes a weapon and actually gets turned against you. So what do we do if we find ourselves in this situation? It takes incredible courage to even begin asking, was that abuse? Here are some steps to help give you permission to explore and name your experience. Number 1, stop justifying their behavior. Instead of saying he just had a bad day, I want you to replace that with, I didn't want to, and he didn't care. Number 2 is to reclaim your internal compass. You need to ask yourself, did I feel safe to say no? Was my yes free and enthusiastic, or was it manipulated? Number 3 is you need to learn the language. Terms like sexual coercion, marital rape, covert sexual abuse. They may feel harsh at first, but naming things accurately is a part of reclaiming your truth. Number 4 is to validate your emotions. You don't need a bruise in order to feel violated. You don't need a police report to know that you were harmed. And number 5 is talk to someone who gets it. A trauma-informed coach or therapist can help you to navigate this fog. It's hard to name this alone. It is. And you don't have to do this alone. I once worked with a woman who told me, but I said yes every time. Whether I wanted to or not, I said yes because the price would be too high to say no. So I said yes. And she thought that because she said yes, that meant that she wasn't allowed to feel harmed. She wasn't allowed to say, hey, this was a violation. But here's what she didn't realize, and that she came to realize. Every yes she gave was soaked in fear. Fear of conflict, fear of being discarded, fear of being punished. And once she stopped asking, okay, but I said yes, so was that okay? She started asking instead, was I free to say no? And that's when the healing began. Marriage is not a contract of ownership. Sex should never come with guilt and obligation. Covert narcissists are experts at making you feel responsible for their moods, their needs, and their entitlement. But your body is yours. And if you're ready to start trusting that again, there is a path forward. I'm here for those conversations, and I offer coaching for survivors who are ready to untangle these hidden wounds and step into the healing that you deserve. If this episode has helped you to feel seen, share it with someone else who needs to know that their no still matters. You can find all the resources I have on my website at covertnarcissism.com. Now, here's the hard but liberating truth. Sex is not a chore. It's not your marital duty, and it's never owed to someone, no matter what role you've been taught to play. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a health care provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those she has talked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support any allegation or claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and information provided.